hit that jive, close the door, get the carpet off the floor. Swing Nation,
People grooving together.
truck on down, pimp your stroll, put some jelly on that roll. Swing Nation,
People grooving together.
Hey everybody, this is Spuds, and I'm here on the set of Swing Nation. Now today what we're doing is a little retrospective on this wonderful show that's part of my heart, that I love, and Zucker Punch and Rick-O-Matic was also part of the show, and Jim Thorpe, punk-ass Jim, behind the ones and twos. Just to get right to it, how did we come up with the idea of Swing Nation? Well, I've always been doing a little show called the Yehudi Talk Show. And me and Rick were doing that show forever. It was an audio show, and late in the game we brought on Nicole Zuckerman because we thought she was great, and we kind of brought her over, right, kicking and screaming. She's right there. But we decided to make a show where you could actually watch dancing. An audio show about dancing is, well, we're trying to describe dancing, and one thing great about Lindy Hop is it's very visual. It's a wonderful dance to watch. So we closed up that show, and together we formed Swing Nation. Swing Nation takes, or the production that we did, took a lot. To put out a weekly show, a half-hour weekly show, there's a lot of setup, a lot of writing, the show itself, right? So it's a half-hour show, but we're in the studio from, I say, about 6:30 till about 10 o'clock at night. But we loved it, and we loved bringing our friends on. We loved bringing different people on the show. We loved showcasing, actually getting to see dancing, finally. One of the things that made me most proud of the show was the love that we got from the people was outstanding. So, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about some highlights. So some of my highlights for the show was, as I'm thinking about it now, we're trying to think about highlights for the show. As I'm thinking about it now, one of the big things for us was when we started in the basement at our friend's cafe, Cafe Sophie, which unfortunately isn't around either anymore. But they were nice enough to let us hang out in their basement and start shooting. I think we did, what did we do, like 2 seasons in the basement? And it was really nice, it was really fun. The move from the basement to kind of a real studio, I have to thank Tony Westling at Chromium for allowing us to record out of his office, basically. We turned his office into our studio, and he was more than happy to let us do it. That was a big turning point for the show, because then it gave us a little more room, it gave us a little more, it was less claustrophobic, nicer to bring guests to. So that was, it's all behind the scenes stuff. A lot of the stuff that I love was behind the scenes stuff. We managed to pull off a 4-camera weekly show for 2.5 years. And we're still trying to find ways of doing more of that. Swing Nation hasn't gone away. It's not going to go away. It's going through some changes now. We're trying to develop some new ideas. But let's look at some of the things that made what we did a lot of fun. Kevin Mins, for me, was one of those moments in the show where we thought we got a rock star. We got a Lindy Hop rock star. Kevin was great. He had a chat with me the night before because he wanted to get his story straight. He was really thoughtful about what he said. He spoke about his father, Al Mins, by the way, if I didn't mention it. And it was a really nice moment. Here's a little clip from that. What did your father even mention about himself as far as he's being a dancer and you had
Manu, he talked very sparingly. The one time that I got to know he was even a dancer is when we were having just this father to son talk, and I said, man, Dad, you know, he was talking about his life. I said, you should write a book. He said, well, I'm already in a book. I said, what book? He said, Jazz Dance. He said, go to the library and you can read about what me and Leon talked about.
That's the Marshall Stearns book?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm a teenager. I go to the library. It's a hardcover book. I pick it up, you know, and it's my dad in chapters 39 and 40, and the intro, and I'm fascinated by all this, and I just couldn't believe it. And that's pretty much how he talked from the time that I was old enough to understand that he had done something. But he was a very quiet, reserved man. In the same way when Stephen Mitchell told you and everybody at Rochester they didn't know who Al Minns was, and my father said, well, go to the Lincoln Center and check out some video footage on me. He never told me, go to the Lincoln Center, son, and see me dance. He said, I'm in a book. So even from his son, he didn't say, go check out your old man. He just didn't do that.
Right.
He didn't.
There was, Kevin's referring to the story of Stephen and Aaron. They were actually taking classes from Al Minns, and they didn't know who he was. They didn't know who he was. They were taking classes from the Al Minns,
Wow.
former Whitey's Lindy Hop, an amazing dancer. And he said, well, go to Lincoln Center and look up some videos. And they went to Lincoln Center and they fell on their asses. They came in the next class and they were like, Mr. Minns, oh my God, can I bring some coffee? You know, they was just like,
Yeah.
So your pop was pretty, he was pretty low key, huh?
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
I think he was super low key. The only time that he got up around us was when we did a show as a family, Al Minns, Leon James, and family in New York called in Town Hall, and that was a great experience dancing with my father. And the other time he wasn't low key was on Father's Day, which I shared with everyone at Rochester when, you know, he's out there and there's the song called Do the Hustle, when the hustle was big, and he's dancing in New York City with my sister Tony, and he hears swing music in the background. And he's like, that's all he needed. And he walked over to this place, and man, he's in front of the people, and he's starting to move. And I'm like, what is he doing? He's just grooving. He's got the cigar in his mouth, you know, and there's a black dude on trumpet, and he says, hey, baby, can I get up there? He says, no, man, this is my time now. And then he looks at the lead guy, the white guy, and he says, can I get up there? He says, come on. My father gets up there and starts dancing. He begins with that movement where his hands are over his head. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know the movement he did, but after that, Manu, he breaks out into the Around the World Charleston. Right then.
Nice.
And I didn't understand that until I think it was a Bobby White or somebody named Bobby that has a swung over where he breaks down the dances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I realized my father was doing. And that was an amazing thing. People were clapping for him. I was saying, go Pops, go Pops. And the lead guy got on the mic and said, this man can swing. And my dad was in the zone. He gets off, and I was like, wow, who is this guy?
Another awesome moment on the show, and I can't quite remember how it came across. Did I find it or someone else found it? We found some pictures, some paintings online of someone who looked like Joel Plies and Allison, his old dance partner. And they were painted with no clothes. And so I Facebooked, is that a verb? Facebooked? Okay, it is now. I Facebooked Joel Plies and I said, hey, I found these pictures to a montage on YouTube against Rock Around the Clock. Is this you naked? And he's like, yeah, it's me. So we got him on the show. I says, please, you got to come on the show. We got to talk about this. This is out there. He's like, okay. So Joel was so cool about it. Maybe because he's not a bad-looking guy. I mean, all right. Well, take a look at this.
I mean, we chatted about it briefly, and I mean, it was one of those situations of going like, what the heck? why not? This will be something different. And it was very different.
Yes.
That was it? What the
That
heck?
is
Why
true.
not?
Yeah, why not? We were young,
That's it?
needed the money. But no, it literally turned into this, like, some emails back and forth, and we went to his studio and signed the paperwork where, I mean, obviously we gave, you know, our rights to those images and everything. And, oh, keep in mind, all of those paintings are, they're definitely bigger than lifelike. I mean, as far as, like, one of the paintings would fit a whole wall, by the way. Nicole, in case you wanted one for a wall.
I love that shot.
Thanks,
So,
Phil.
but when we walked in, there was I think there was like a tennis player, there was a stripper with a pole, there, not live, but these paintings.
Yeah.
And these massive paintings were there, and we're wearing robes and just white tennis shoes, and that's it.
Well, you know,
I did see the tennis shoes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
thing-
it.
The thing about the tennis shoes. So I asked Joel. I says, "Well, what'd you do? Did you pose like, you know, with bodysuits on or whatever?" And then he put them naked in, and Joel says, "No, we posed naked," which explains the tennis shoes
Right.
because the whole thing about, what was that artist, Manet or something like that, who was the first to paint a woman, but she had like a necklace on, so that turns it from like just a nude to like something a little dirty. So it was something a little dirty in those pictures because all y'all had on were shoes. So that's what I'm saying.
I didn't take it that way at all. We actually told them we can't dance in bare feet.
Exactly.
So there was a logistical aspect
Right.
to that.
That's where I went next after I learned that it wasn't
Yeah,
really sexy.
sure you did.
So just to clarify, Joel, where does one procure these paintings now, or see these paintings in the flesh? So to
I
speak?
don't know. I think you have to contact John, and I'm sure they're for sale. I mean, I don't know if he has them in a gallery. I'm sure that some people will be in touch with him, and I plan to touch base and just say, hey, by the way.
Yeah. One thing we did do is, outside of the show, we had what we called SwingNation Special Editions, the SwingNation Special Episodes. One of these was with Rick Panganiman and the Decavita Sisters, but there was another one that Zucker Punch spearheaded, and this was with Jonathan Stout. Now, Jonathan Stout, if you don't know, he's a dancer and he's an amazing guitarist. He leads many bands. One of the bands he leads is an all-star band that happens at ILHC for the last, I think, 4 years. And Zucker Punch got a really good interview with him, and you could talk to this guy forever about music, but here's a little bit from that.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your criteria is for choosing songs?
Well, danceability is a really tough thing. And so the first thing is, like, it has to be danceable. I feel like a song has to have a defined beginning, a defined ending. It has to go on a journey. And, you know, sometimes that's just like you play the head, this person takes a solo, and then the next person that you tell to take a solo usually would take it up a notch. Usually the trumpet player on an open horn is going to be a little bit louder than the tenor player, which is going to be louder than the piano player. So, like, kind of just stacking the solos in a way that builds an arc in. Like, that's huge because you go on a journey. Like, we've all had that experience of, like, going to a bar, hearing, like, a random jazz band, and you're like, oh, hey, what do you know? And, like, you see them again, and they're just not, it's not working. And it's because they're sort of, it's like the difference between a jam and a choreography. Like, a jam, anything can happen, and they can be a train wreck, or they can be, like, mind-blowing. But, like, you know, choreography is at least consistent. So, like, you need a song that starts off being danceable. But that second thing is, for a band to do it, especially a band that's not, like, if the Boilermakers do a song, it basically comes down to how Paul plays the melody and how Jerry, the trombone player, reacts. Because how Paul plays that melody is how that song goes. And in a band like ours, where it's less focused on one person just playing their instrument the way that it's supposed to be, you know, we do more riffy stuff that it kind of has to replicate the same every time. So there has to be that amount of consistency. So like a song that just is one guy playing the melody really amazingly is tough to replicate, because it comes down to the musician who's going to play that part, replicating that the way they did that, the original source did it, or doing it in a way that's amazing. And, you know, we play the song Cheek to Cheek. And I know you're thinking like Cheek to Cheek, Fred Astaire, that seems a little uptight for like real Lindy Hop. And at my wedding, which was actually just about 10 years ago, I had the Campus 5, and our trumpet player, Jim Ziegler, sang it. And Jim sings like a jazz musician, not like a crooner. He sings like Jack Teagarden or Red Allen or something like that. And he made it swing so hard. And occasionally when Jim's not available and we use another trumpet player, we do the song as an instrumental. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll just have the trumpet played where the vocal melody would be. And one of the trumpet players, who's another one of our favorites, Brian Shaw, he was at Lindy Focus, you know, his thought was, oh, I'll play, you know, Cheek to Cheek. Heaven, and I had to tell him, no, man, you know, that was cool, but next time we do this song, think about the way, play it like Jim Ziegler would sing it. Heaven, in heaven, and like with rhythm like that, instead of so glorious and legato, and like that worked. But, you know, that's just one more situation where I can't play Cheek to Cheek unless the guy knows it's got to, you know, it's got to have a bounce, it's got to have a swing. And you can't write that, so they have to know it. But a song like Squatty Roo, ba ba da ba da ba da ba, ba ba da ba da 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 da, like, it's kind of hard to misinterpret that. You could read it wrong. But like, there has to be a level of consistency to a song to be a good song to keep playing. And there has to be room in it, because if it's just the same thing every time, we're dead.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Quick, while Spuds is out of the room, I want to have my say on this. One of my favorite moments in the show was when we talked to the makers of Caucasian Dancing History, which was this spoof by Javi, Shani, Nick, and Bobby, spoofing the Playboy video with Al Almans and Leon James. And man, the original clip is really great and informative, but their parody of it was so good. I still can't get over watching it. It was awesome. And then getting to talk to them also was super great. So here's one of my favorites.
Did we show this last week or 2 weeks ago? A previous show. We showed a little bit of it.
One or two shows ago.
Yeah, one or two shows ago. We talked a little bit about the history of Caucasian dancing, which is a video that is parodying the Playboy After Dark with Hugh Hefner and Marshall Stearns, featuring Al Almans and Leon James. We just love this video so much. We're going to show a little bit of it just to start it off.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie.
You know, I don't know anything that pinpoints.
Hard to stop.
Okay, I don't know anything that helps the cause of the Caucasian dancer more than never gonna give you.
Tony Brown.
And Javi unfortunately couldn't make it because he's in Germany.
Yeah.
Oh, Germany.
He's fancy.
Germany.
So, thank you guys for joining us on the show. We
Pleasure.
loved the video, and
10,000 other people also loved it, apparently.
Or maybe it was just me.
Click,
9,000
clean,
times.
again. Yeah.
Actually, funny enough, it hit 10,000 views on Bobby's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Bobby.
By no coincidence.
There, yeah, let's get a shot of Bobby. Where is he? There he is.
There he
handsome
is.
devil.
Hey guys.
So while we've got you, Bobby, I hear that you are the mastermind, the font of this
What?
Ridiculousness.
project. How did that happen? How did you think of it?
Well, so I've loved the Al Almans and Leon James clip that it came from, the Playboy clip, known for a long time. And a few years ago, I don't know, I just thought it'd be really funny to do a version where the roles are flipped, where, you know, since so much of that is intellectuals in the 1960s trying to understand jazz dance, especially the African side of the African history that brought up American jazz dance. I just thought it would be hilarious to do the roles flipped, especially since, you know, it's easy to comically put Caucasian contributions to the dance in like movies or the chicken dance. Like it's pretty easy to kind of, I guess, find a lot of comical examples of what we have contributed to the dance in that sense.
Yeah, I think you were right. It was totally hilarious. So, how did you guys pick what songs you were going to do?
I say, like, so the initial idea was just that, like, hey, I basically went to Nick and was like, hey, let's do like the roles flipped, and then so after that it was very much a teamwork project with Nick and I. So, and he was definitely really great with bringing in the music and stuff. So he should probably talk about that.
So Nick, tell us your secret. How did you pick?
Well, it's just trying to figure out, okay, what are some of the iconic things that that just any person, like not dancers specifically, but just anybody out there will be like, when they think about white people dancing, like what comes up right away? Of course, Rick Astley, as we saw on the video, and we saw New Kids on the Block, but everything else from Swing Fever, and then trying to figure out what kind of progression we want as far as the dances are concerned, starting off with like ballet and what do we do? Waltz, yeah. And just trying to figure out what are some of the cheesy music iconic things that people think about when doing those. So it actually became pretty easy. Bob and I just brainstormed everything together. We've worked on a lot of different projects together, so we've got a really good rapport, and we just can kind of throw back and forth and figure out something good. We both come from theater and film background, so makes it pretty easy.
One of my other favorite highlights of the show was having our special guest host on, who was our correspondent for, let's say, delicate issues. Anne Monique always came on the show whenever we had something that was a difficult subject to talk about or was sensitive for some reason, and she was a trooper about it. She was always really incisive and fair, and so I always looked forward to having her on the show. Here are some of the favorites.
Coming up on this episode of SwingNation, we've got coming up on this episode of SwingNation, we've got coming up on this episode of SwingNation, we've got coming up on this episode of SwingNation, we've got SwingNation episode 62 starts now.
Here she come now, say money, money.
Glamourization of the 1930s Harlem and its unique cultural style is a present tone, but the petty aesthetic shouldn't be uncoupled from the fact that life in Harlem during that time was not often very fun. In that time period, dancing was a way to temporarily escape from daily life's problems. So it's like, is he saying, because I read it twice, is he saying, yeah, you can't be Lindy Hopping if you don't know about the struggles of the Lindy Hoppers? Is he saying with the accent and everything?
Kind of.
It's kind of what he's saying, right?
Yeah. I mean, because in cultural appropriation, you pick and choose, right? And you come from a place of privilege, and you say like, haha, I'm gonna, mock this thing or take it not seriously at all, and then go back to my comfortable life. But I mean, there are times when you appropriate something in that way, that disrespectful way, and then there are other times there's like this gray zone where it's cultural transmission. Like maybe you're from another country and you really,
which is often the case, as with the Swedes that he mentions.
Right.
Right.
Well,
or she mentions.
So I think that it can be done in a good way, in a respectful way. Like I think there's some Lindy Hop teams that say wear World War II uniforms, and they're doing that hopefully with the intention of respecting the people who were, who went off to war at that time, not doing it in a disrespectful way. Mm-hmm. There are other times that are like, but even that could be contested. Like you could have a debate about like, should we be dressing up as soldiers when we haven't gone to war? When we weren't around at the time, when we, weren't involved in that struggle. But then there are other times, like the one Nicole mentioned, like where it's blatantly obvious that you should not do any sort of blackface.
Ever.
You should not wear a fat suit.
Ever.
You should not.
I think you're good. So to wrap this up, we only have a couple more things. I did want to mention the lovely Miss Annie Trudeau, who we did a interview with her a little while ago. She was one of the best guests. She had like so much exciting things to say. She was gracious. She was very busy that night, but she took time. She's always busy, but she took time out of her busy schedule to talk to us a little bit. Here's a little bit of that interview. So, as you were learning Lindy Hop and stuff like that, when did you kind of get the bug to? Did you get the bug to perform first, or did you get the bug to compete, or?
No, it was really the social dancing at first, because I had a very, I would say, long and, I don't know the word in English, exigeant. I would say difficult career in gymnastics. I mean, I really enjoyed it and it was great. I loved it and I was really sad when I had to stop, but it still was 20 hours a week and it was a competitive sport for me. So when I stopped and I did the dancing, it was more for fun and for socializing. But, you know, it's in my blood. So I could not help but do something like that. So I got approached after about a year of dancing in the social dance scene in Montreal by the Swinging Air Force crew. And that's still the troupe that I'm running now, but at that time it was more a group of people just sharing moves and doing a little bit of performance stuff. But we grew together and our first goal was to go to American Lindy Hop Championships in 2001. So we dressed like the nurse and the military boys, and we did American Patrol 2001, you know, in Stamford, Connecticut, and that was a very big deal for us because we were the first Canadians to go to that American championship. So we were really intimidated. But when, you know, everything went well and we got a bit of recognition, we got the third place. So, you know, we were ecstatic and we decided to start a studio in Montreal, and then it was the business and the competition and the social, everything, you know.
Finally, we want to wrap this up with a mention of Charleston. Charleston is a craze all across the world where a local community will come together and just make a video and dance Charleston. And that's it. And it's this big thing. I think if you go to iCharleston.com or something like that, we talked about it so many times on the show. We featured pieces from all over the world. So I will leave you with a few of our favorites, iCharlestons. Thank you so much for everyone who's watched Swing Nation. Thank you for watching everything that we here at Yehudi.com produce, and we will see you on the next show. And as Zucker Punch would say,
keep swinging out.
Really?
I'm Joe Hoffberg, and if you like this business and you would like to see more of this business, please support us over at Patreon by going to patreon.com/Yehudi.